And then, so there's quite a lot of research now on urea as a foliar spray, and it's been found that a little bit of amino acid with it gives it a much better protein conversion. So urea with amino acids. But the other thing that I would suggest, if you want the sort of kick-ass of all nitrogen sources through the leaf, and that's to brew, so there's Azotobacter is a really cool organism. There's two forms of it. There's the one that lives on the roots, which you would use at planting. And it's very competitive in the root zone. You're only using 1 litre per hectare, and you don't want to say if a little bit works better, let's put more on, because it actually is counterproductive. It's a super heavy oxygen user. It's actually the most aerobic known organism on the planet, Azotobacter, the free living nitrogen fixer. So if you say if a little bit works good, I'll put more on, it can absolutely backfire, because it'll steal oxygen in the root zone and knock out other organisms and have. So just 1 litre a hectare is all you're going to put on the plant cane as you're planting it. And then when you're foliar spraying, what's cool about it is it's called urea adaptive. It actually loves urea. And so it actually thrives in the presence of that urea. So you brew some up, so it costs you next to nothing. And this is a different one called Bioplex. So you brew up Bioplex and you put it with your urea and a little bit of amino acids and the humic acid, and that gives you the. Now, if you want to combine other things, with that spray, so you're not going over the paddock dozens of times, then instead of using humic acid, you'd use, this is just talking about our products, you'd use Fulvex, which is half humic, half fulvic, but we've found a way to make humic compatible with everything, which is not normally. It's only compatible with urea and sodium borate. There's only 2 things that it goes with. But this one goes with everything, and it's half fulvic, half humic, and you put a bit of that with that urea foliar spray in it, and then you can add anything else if you need some zinc, which I think you probably do, and a touch of manganese if iron's shutting down manganese, and some boron, which will be almost certain. Then they can all go in there at the same time. But my concern is, and this is the part that I'm coming back that I don't know, and I'd love to get some feedback from you when you try it, is how much can you put on in that if you're doing, say, 50 litres a hectare, which even the broadacre guys are doing 100 litres, so it's half the water rate. But the typical kind of rate is 15 kilos per hectare of urea that you'd be foliar spraying. So now you're putting 15 kilos into 50 litres. It's pretty hot. And you've got to have humic acid with it to buffer potential burn, but it's pretty fine mist, so I don't think it's going to burn, but I don't know. I'd like to see what happens when
I've done, when I first started my urea spray, 15 kilos, I was with 90 litres of water.
Okay.
A bit slow going. I pulled it back to 60 litres of water, which is the 1-to-4 ratio.
Yeah.
Didn't notice any negative effect.
And did you see positive effects?
No, not visually. No,
because you should. I mean, yeah, that's.
Now I didn't monitor it that closely. We were a bit under the pump and busy, but no, and I didn't do any strips or leave strips out to monitor it too closely.
Okay, well that's good news from my perspective, because that's the 60 litres is what the broadacre guys often do at that 1-to-4. So that's meaning with that, that's good that you're not getting the 60 litres, you're not seeing any sign of burn. It's just a case of whether it's delivering and getting in well, and that's why you could use a nitrogen meter, nitrate meter, or whatever, and just see what's happening, but in the field. But yeah, that's interesting. I think it's one. It won't be an issue with trace minerals and things. It's just when you get that much of a major mineral that you're getting. And I'm assuming it would. I think it's fine. Probably going to be fine.
So urea, I've taken from what you're talking about. Urea water foliar sprayed is good and effective and efficient.
Yeah, it's super efficient.
And can go with most other products.
Yeah, almost everything.
Off the shelf type, NTS type.
NTS. Sometimes it's cheaper for you to just use trace minerals and collate it yourself with Fulvex or fulvic acid or something. But we'll talk about those options. This is about the education part of the division. I don't try and sell. I mean, I'll tell you about things if I think they're going to be useful for you, but I don't try and sell products. It's about trying to make you more profitable, basically. So I talk about all the ways you can do things yourself and do things cheaper and things. But there's sometimes there'll be things of ours that will fit into the thing. But it's not about trying to sell stuff from me with this. It's about, I'm a farmer. I've got 2 farms myself, and I just want to make farmers more profitable and get into this, more sustainable way of doing things.
You mentioned the amino acid, and I have a little bit of a a confusion or I need an explanation.
Yes.
I see your product, MAD,
Yes.
talk about. How
Yeah.
do you position, some articles I read will talk about, you could leave out urea and just put amino acid in and that'll give you your nitrogen. What's your take on
Well, there's two different things. So first thing to know is that amino acids do everything. I mean, there's no plant process that's not driven by an amino acid, including photosynthesis. So, and that's the whole spectrum of them. The nitrogen story is a different story. It's because it's part of the pathway. You convert urea to amino acids as part of that pathway. Well, they're already there, so you don't have to go through any of that energy sucking. You're just putting them in, but it's just cost wise. It's not, So, but MAD is completely different. We've got two amino acids. We've got Amino Max, which is a high nitrogen source that you can use for organic people for an organic, super efficient organic substance. But MAD is this new thing that's super, super tiny that carries things in like a chelating agent and it just delivers all the spectrum of amino acids. So when you see the normal size, it's called kilodaltons. The size of an amino acid governs how well it's uptaken. And standard size is 128 kilodaltons, and this is 5 kilodaltons. So it's just insanely small because it's actually the bacteria making the amino acids, and then you're killing off the bacteria and concentrating up the amino acids. And so it'd be a wonderful option to put with the urea. It'd be really, really cool for that. And it's wonderful just as to collate. It basically can collate and carry in anything. It'll be sort of the most effective do-it-yourself collating thing that you can use. It's super efficient.
Yep.
Yeah, so but if you're chasing nitrogen, which is usually organic people doing that, I mean, realistically, urea as a foliar spray is the cheapest, and as a foliar, as long as you've got a complex and buffered with some humic and fulvic, it's the cheapest, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's a natural compound. It's far, far cheaper than amino acids.
Yep. Okay. Use it as a tonic rather than a chelator rather than as a nitrogen source.
That's right.
Yep.
You can, and the organic guys do use. It's bloody expensive.
Cost, right? Yep.
So the two types of leaf tests, and I'm just leaning towards checking. We've always run with conventional just dry leaf analysis, which we use this lab at the Southern Cross University called EAL Lismore for the leaf test. But I was teaching and just when I just got back from Europe, and Nova Crop Control, or Nova, whatever they're called, Crop Labs, or whatever. The guy who set that up, the two of them, they're both mates of mine that I trained originally, and they used to work for my distributor in Holland, and I was the first. And they set up the lab because I sort of argued that someone should be doing top and bottom leaf for the mobile minerals, because you're measuring from the top leaf, you're measuring where it moved to, particularly with potassium, and you don't really know where you're at with the potassium status of the plant. So they set up that lab, and it's turned into this monster. I mean, it's the biggest leaf testing lab in the world now. And I was concerned because they didn't have guidelines, but now they've had 14 years because they just should. And Bart, the two guys that set it up, would just say, I reckon it's this, because it's brand new. You didn't really know what was ideal and what wasn't. But now they really have nailed that, or much better than what it was. They've got really good guidelines. But every grower you talk to says, oh my God, I couldn't do this without this fingertip control of what's happening. And so I'm thinking, back in the day when we were debating utilising their services, you had to send off an esky with a bloody ice pack in it to keep the sap, but now they're finding you can just put it in a zip top plastic bag and make sure the top's zipped, and then just put it in a padded bag and fly it with DHL, so it's there within a day and a half or whatever. And they just test them. They've got like 40 or 50 of these machines. It's a huge facility now because I've just been there teaching all their 40 consultants. But and it works fine to do it just that way. So it's become a viable kind of a secondary option. So we're sort of just in the process of saying, well, let's have a look at this and include it as a tool as well. So, so
this is sap, Graeme?
Yeah, this is sap rather than dry leaf.
Yeah,
and
okay.
they do top leaf, bottom leaf in it. And the top leaf, bottom leaf, which is really two tests that they're doing, costs slightly less than the normal dry leaf analysis. So, well, I don't know because we haven't seen how much it'll cost for freight, but it looks like it's going to cost less.
We, Ashley and I are involved in a program in the last 12 months that looked at sap in sugarcane and sent it to Nova. Ashley sent some to...
okay.
And And I'll be honest with you, throughout, there's about 10 growers in this group. I suppose my take is that we just couldn't get accurate assessments of what was going on.
Okay.
There is no guidelines for sugarcane
Oh, that's why.
at all. And so we're getting these sort of random, what look like random sort of numbers back and comments. And here we were trying to interpret these things. And
that was exactly my concern with it originally, because they didn't have guidelines. And what the hell, the figures mean nothing unless there's guidelines.
So we threw it in a heap and just.
Well, they wouldn't have worked with, so that's thanks for that advice, because I didn't even think of that. They wouldn't even have guidelines for cane. When would they do cane work?
Yeah. That's the trouble. I think Ashley dealt with another lab. Was that Omnia, Ashley? They had guidelines from South Africa?
Yeah, so I did a series of sap sampling throughout the growing cycle, Graeme.
Yeah.
Where I've ended up is following those sap samples with no applications on the results of those sap samples. We just followed the crop.
Yeah.
We got to a January, February period where the cane is quite mature and all the numbers sort of built up. So where I got to in the whole sap sampling is, or for nutrient management going forward, is maybe taking a tissue test around that January, February period where the cane is mature, where we do have some guidelines in tissue testing for cane, to give me a bit of an indication of what my nutrient plan has delivered.
Yeah.
And I've gone away from sap sampling, a workload logistical thing. We've got to have a nutrient plan in place. Let's apply the nutrition the way as we're evolving to learn how to apply it, and take a tissue test cross-section across the farm to get a bit of a gauge on how our nutrient plan went.
And you don't think there'd be a gain in taking that dry leaf? I call it dry leaf because you ash it and then you analyze it, the ash. But that you don't think there'd be a gain in doing it early on? I mean, to make sure that you're on track.
Well, I think so. Yes. Now, as we're entering into some new nutritional programs, I think it's going to be a requirement to do some. So that was my question to you. Dry tissue testing is a good way to monitor that crop.
It's really good. It's all I've ever done. I'm just looking at this because there's mostly vegetable growers are all saying they're getting good results, but they've got good guidelines. And like I'm saying, it's meaningless if there's no guidelines and they don't do work with cane. So you just be floundering with sap unless you had guidelines. But the dry leaf I've used I wouldn't grow myself on my own farms without it. It's just a hell of a guideline as to, what you need and what you don't. Like I said, looking at the tests I've been looking at, like you would suspect things, but you don't know until you do a tissue test. And you would suspect that high iron, 300 parts per million iron is quite high iron, that it would be affecting the marginal. You've got marginal zinc, marginal copper, marginal manganese, and even sometimes iron can impact phosphorus, but not always. And so the leaf test just takes the guesswork away, and you just see what you need and how it's working in your soil and your conditions. And it gives you the guideline you need, particularly if you're going to correct it with foliars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Graeme, just on that, I suppose I got one of these things I acquired some many years ago. It's just a chlorophyll end tester.
Okay.
Can you see a value in using that through the year, as just getting a gauge on?
Yeah, it gives you guidelines and things?
I've got no bloody guidelines at all.
Yeah, you probably could.
I'm chasing up some guidelines through Steve Paul, through Yarra.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Honestly, the easiest way to check those is are you subscribed to ChatGPT or not?
Yeah, yep.
So you go to on ChatGPT 4, you just ask the guidelines for that medium, and they'll give them to you. You can go. It's ridiculous. The agronomy team just, if there's any question they don't know, they use the other Google one, whatever it is, and they cross-reference them because it's probably wrong about 0.5% of the time. Yeah. So, but it's ridiculously good.
So ChatGPT-4 is a subscription.
Yeah.
The 4 is a subscription.
$10 a month or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really, really good. The agronomy thing on it's really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that would, if we could get some guidelines on N.
we haven't got, like, Hariba don't provide you any guidelines at all for using their meters. You don't even know what it means. You know, they don't say where you're not supposed to be. They give rough guidelines, but you go to ChatGPT and they just give you guidelines for everything. So
you wouldn't need it for the potassium meter, would you? As if you're going to do an old and a new.
Too old and new,
that's sort of chasing, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can get them all. They're all there. So, you know, like,
yeah. Would this be the same, old and new leaf, nitrogen being mobile?
Yeah, that's what you can. That's you're only measuring nitrate nitrogen rather than ammonium nitrogen, but still, it's a guideline of top leaf, bottom leaf because it's super mobile.
Okay. Yeah.
So that gives you a feel for where you're at, but so will the tissue test. But the big one is that you've got enough nitrogen. See, basically, if you look at, you haven't tested molybdenum, but so your nitrogen, people think, oh yeah, I grew the crop on so many bags of DAP or so many bags of urea or whatever, but you didn't. You just supplemented with that because you've got all this natural. You've got nitrogen cycling and you've got nitrogen fixation happening. But and then people say, oh, yeah, that's only with legumes. We don't put legumes under the cane. No, it's not only with legumes. It's equally with free living nitrogen fixers. But they can't fix nitrogen because the enzyme that grabs the gas and turns it into ammonium nitrogen is made from molybdenum. So it's made from molybdenum and iron when you've got no problems with iron. But molybdenum is a real chief suspect because it's light soils and high rainfall and it's a leachable anion. And every soil you test, 80% of the soils we test globally are deficient of, you only need half a part per million, but most of them have got 0.1 or 0.2, which means you've got no access to that 74,000 tons of nitrogen gas that hovers above every hectare, which is what you're trying to get to. So you've got to have, so that's why you've got to have a test that measures a bit more than what you're measuring.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. That's good.
So when you're foliar spraying urea sets in one of those programs, and you've got good programs and good inputs in there, how much urea are you including in that foliar, for example, that you were talking about?
Well, I haven't actually got around to it yet, but actually sort of on that track at 15 kilos a hectare, wasn't it?
That's good.
Of urea. Yep.
Yeah, that's really good.
Okay.
So one of the other questions you're asking,
and I would be reluctant to take that any higher.
No,
because I'm really looking for the foliar efficiency. You know those small numbers, applying them foliar and getting more out of smaller amounts.
No,
which
that's
is what I'm hearing you talk about.
No, that's the way to do it. You don't want to use more than that. But just remember those two boosters. The amino acids, there's good studies on it now that amino acids it's only small amounts, but amino acids added with it. And I would use that MAD product because it gives so many other benefits as well. And the concept that if now that you can brew Azotobacter, if you've got brewing facilities, it becomes, otherwise if you're using the mother culture, which you can, of course, that's what it's designed for, it's like 40 or 50 bucks a hectare to put your 1 litre out because it's all you're using on the leaf is 1 litre. But if you brew it, it's going to cost $1 or $2 or something. So, so it makes it a much more affordable thing to do. And it works. It lasts for about 6 weeks, fixing nitrogen on the leaf. If you put it on the roots, the other one called BioN on the roots, that will sometimes go for at least a year because it's so competitive in the root zone. So it just stays fixing nitrogen as long, but that doesn't happen. Like the guy who developed was an American professor who spent his entire life working on nothing but Azotobacter, and he developed these strains that can live on the leaf, that live on the soil. And when you'd visit him, when I used to visit India regularly, there was pictures of him with the Prime Minister at the time. He got the medals for all the things he'd achieved. But what happened to him was he had a village that they dropped their nitrogen and used just the soil one and the leaf one, and they got this really nice crop for the year. And so then another village wasn't neighbouring, it was across a few hundred k's away. They did, because one of the family members was from that other village, and they heard it and said, we're going to do this, and they had a complete crop failure. So he went to check out the crop failure, and they beat him up, and he came home and killed himself that night. So, and it turned out the reason it failed was there was no molybdenum in the soils. Can't work without molybdenum. So that's the thing that you've got to be aware of. So then his wife, who's also a microbiologist, she's continued, and they have a really good lab. But we pushed them so hard with quality control that we just send batches back if there was any contamination, and they just lifted their game, and they're now the leading microbe lab in India. That's where we get those particular products from.
So that leaf product, Graeme, that one's called
Bioplex.
Bioplex. Okay. Yep. And you can brew that up, as you say.
And the good thing about Bio-N is it's just like Pseudomonas fluorescens or even some of the Bacillus species, it's also a really good phosphate solubilizer. So you've got, presumably through the use of the Dunder or whatever, or the Amilmud, you've got good levels of phosphorus in many blocks. And so now you want to make sure that's in the soluble form. And so these organisms can do that for you.
Okay. Excellent. All right. I've been, you would have seen I had fish and kelp in there. Is that okay? You got any queries with that?
No, they're bloody good. They're really good things to have in there. They got the full spectrum of trace minerals in them, and they've got, kelp's a chelating agent in its own right, so they're really good additives.
Okay, cool. Triacontanol, I threw a bit of that in.
That's the other thing I was going to say is with that urea foliar spray, a really good additive is to put some triacontanol. Triacontanol is kind of like the no-brainer because it's so good, and its mode of action is that it basically boosts every aspect of photosynthesis, and you're trying to produce sugar, and the better you photosynthesize, the better you're doing. And so there's even in Guatemala, and I've got an agronomist who's from Guatemala, and his father and mother are both agronomists, so cane agronomists in Guatemala, and they've been using, they were spraying off, they were lifting sugar levels by using glyphosate at the end of the season. Well, they're using triacontanol instead and getting really good results. So it's just a real sugar booster. So because it's so cheap, like we're struggling to keep up with it at the moment, but because we're in some kind of boom mode, there seems to be this awareness of this approach now. We're growing at 18% a month after being here for 30 years.
Wow.
But triacontanol, there's been such a demand for it that it's just been struggling to keep up the manufacturer and so forth. But it's only like literally, if you buy in say 20-litre containers, it's costing, the ideal is 50 mils per hectare, but 30 mils works, and so you can use as little as 30 mils, and that is about $2 a hectare. And I don't know of anything for $2 that gives that good a response.
Yep.
So yeah.
Okay.
So it increased.
Sorry,
what was that, Susan?
I just wanted to ask, so how does it boost all aspects of photosynthesis? What are you doing to boost all those aspects?
You can check some of my blog articles, or you can just Google how does triacontanol work on ChatGPT, and you'll see the sort of things that it does. But its mode of action is it's kind of like the perfect plant growth promotant, because you can use things like gibberellic acid, as some of the dairy farmers do, and things, and they speed cell division, but it's like you get more of this lanky plant with more of nothing sort of thing. It's got no more nutrition. But what triacontanol does is that when I say it boosts every aspect of photosynthesis, and you can measure this with your chlorophyll meter. It measures chlorophyll density. There's studies where it's increased chlorophyll density by 38%, one that springs to mind, 33, 34. So you'll measure that on your meter after you've applied it, this increase in chlorophyll density. So obviously the more chlorophyll you've got, the more sugar you're making. But then it increases stomatal opening, because the stomach, there's a little mouth that can open up to 7 times its normal size. And the biggest player in stomatal opening and how well you're photosynthesizing is potassium. And that's why I'd like to see, closer monitoring of potassium, because it's so marginal on all the blocks there. And there's even some blocks where you've got more sodium than potassium, and that's almost always an induced potassium deficiency, but you need to have a leaf test to be sure of that. Basically the deal is that, so just talking about how it works for how a plant sources its minerals, so it will take, you've got all the major cations, so calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, stuck on the clay colloid. And if it decides it wants calcium, it senses it based on the size of the ion. So calcium's this big beach ball. It says, I'm having that one. And so it takes calcium off the clay colloid. And then it releases, once it takes calcium, it has to balance itself electrically. So it spits out, and it's not going to take in one positively charged mineral and spit out another good one that's a food. Like you wouldn't take in calcium and spit out magnesium, there'd be no point. So what you spit out each time when you take up calcium, magnesium, potassium from the clay is that you spit out hydrogen, and hydrogen sits on the clay colloid, where that's what cation exchange is about. You exchange the cation for hydrogen, and hydrogen's the acid mineral with no value, and that's what you're measuring when you've got some of those soils are only 5.5 on the grazing blocks. I mean, that's a soil that's the pantry's been emptied, and 5.5, everything's sort of half as available. So there's a real gain in It's just how do you do it when you've got 22,000 acres or whatever it is that you're farming on the Salisbury Plains block. How do you do that cost effectively? But it does desperately need calcium, and that's where you can play around with. It's just the cost effectiveness. We do all the micronized things, but you're not changing the actual soil. It's just fast food calcium. But what I suggest people do, what I would suggest you do on those Salisbury Plains, is that you take something like, a large amount, like 20 litres of micronized lime, and you can buy it in powder form or in our liquid form, and just spray it on 1 hectare. Just put it out on 1 trial hectare, and then just see what response you get. Monitor bricks and monitor soil life and monitor whatever, because that's equivalent to basically that tonne an acre in terms of immediate response. And then you'll see whether it's worth looking at trying to lime some areas, whether you're going to get the calcium response. You use it as a canary in the coal mine to see whether it's, it's the wrong analogy, but you use it as a tester to see whether that's going to be appropriate and cost effective to do on a larger scale. So you don't use it as a calcium replacement. You can use it for root zone calcium, and it's like if you can liquid inject it, you're putting out a plant and you want to just impact the root zone and open up that root zone, and it's really effective. And those micronized minerals have become hugely popular. But when you're farming, in the pasture scenario and you've got limited budgets, it just comes down to what's going to be most cost effective.
Yep.
And what's viable.
Yep.
So sometimes you can see if there's calcium low in the leaf that you can just foliar spray 2 or 3 kilos of cal nitrate, and that's $1.50, and you put a bit of fulvic acid with it. You put or Fulvex, which is the new combination of humic and fulvic, and it goes with cal nitrate, but whatever. Then the problem again, it's all about the pragmatic side of things, is that you don't want to be running the drone or the tractor over things with just one thing in it. And the problem with calcium is it doesn't go with anything. So then the few things you can put with it, that's when you make sure you utilize them. So you can put triacontanol, you can put kelp and fish, and all those things go really well with calcium. So you use it for that sort of biological side of things at that point.
Yep.
But I think that that'd be really worthwhile doing some trial work with that silica solubilizing thing. Because have you ever used potassium silicate on the cane to see what happens?
No, I haven't. No.
It's expensive, but you'll see what silica does for cane. We sell huge amounts. We sell container loads of potassium silicate into the Philippines for use on cane. But it's just whether you're using like a couple of litres a hectare. But again, it's really hot. It's got a pH of 11.9. I'm thinking that you'd get away with it in the drone, but you'd have to test to make sure that there's no burning. You put a bit of that Fulvex with it to buffer it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'll just go through to make sure that we're covering all the other. So your timing in terms of nutrient use efficiency. So have you used, when you're using your starter blends and you've got your bit of DAP and a few other bits and pieces, and are you using soluble humic acid granules at that point or not?
Look, I threw fulvic acid in there because that's what I had.
The soluble granules are just perfect for that thing. See, humic acid doesn't leach. Humic acid's got a CC of 450, so it grabs hold of everything and holds onto it. And it doesn't leach. Fulvic acid can stimulate root growth and it can collate things, and it's wonderful as a foliar, but it can actually leach. So it doesn't stay there and keep doing the job. So if you've got a CC of, I'm not sure what these soils are because they don't even give you the CC on this strange test, but if the CC was, are they sandy or what?
No, they're a mixture, I suppose, but the CECs will be 3 or 4.
Oh, so they are sandy, kind of sandy then.
Yeah.
Hell of a, yeah, so, and those soils, like you've not got large percentage of clay or humus to hold on to anything, which are the two minerals that hold stuff. And so the humic acid is like I've got a 4 cc on I've got, an apple and stone fruit farm, 100 acres up at Stanthorpe, and I wouldn't do anything without humic acid, because humic acid grabs it and holds it, and it can't leach. It's 10 times larger than fulvic, and it'll grab phosphate and form a phosphate humate, but it also stimulates fungi. It's the most powerful fungal stimulant. If you need on that test to boost your fungal numbers, it's perfect. But at the same time, stabilizing and collating everything that you're putting in there. So, it would be a really good additive.
Right.
So, Graeme, on the back of one of your podcasts I listened to about 12 months ago, when you were talking about humic acid, and you were adamant, quoting you said, if you don't believe me, go and put a bag of DAP out with it and bag without it.
Yeah.
I just took that, and since then I've implemented humic acid in my returning granular blends.
Good.
At your sort of 5% levels.
Yeah, that's good.
And to manage the cost, I took confidence in what the efficiencies improvement and reduced my NPK&S by the cost of the humic.
Yeah, good. That's what I always suggest. And how did you go?
Well, yeah, it's that we've grown the crop as per normal. I did follow it with some foliar sprays, the urea spray.
Yeah.
And I'll be continuing that this year, a reduced
so,
NPK, added humic acids followed with
I mean, we had an example. I was working with these 17 or 15 or something big potato growers and doing talks for them and so forth, and going back every 3 months. And they use like 2 tons of NPK, 2.2 to be exact, some of them, under the potatoes. And it's red soil, so it's high iron, similar to what we've got there on Paul's place. And so that ties up phosphate quite quickly and forms phosphate, forms an iron phosphate. Within 3 or 4 weeks, high iron can tie up phosphate. So there's a phosphate-dominated NPK, and I said to them, look, if you put the humic acid, they said, what's the maximum rate you can use? And you can actually overdo it. The maximum rate's 20 kilos, which is $60 worth or something. And they said, all right, we're going to do that. So I've never worked with anyone that's put the maximum rate out, but they put the 20 kilos, and I said, you've got to pull back. And so some of them pulled back by a third, so they used like 1,200 instead of 2,000. 12 or 1,300, and 2 of them said, no, we're just going to get a better result. And it actually backfired on the 2 that put in 20 kilos with 2 tons in there. They got an overdose of everything. I mean, the leaf test just come back with everything just off the charts. But the guys that pulled back, they actually had their best yields ever. So they got the 20 kilos is a lot of humic acid, but it works. That's the maximum rate, but it works really, really well, particularly on potatoes because it boosts root growth so well. So you can use too much of it, but the idea of just taking off because it's so well researched to increase uptake by those figures are 30 to 34%. So you're going to get a third better uptake. So the cost of it's quite safe to take it off, and people do it all over the world, and it works really well. But it's a great additive, and it's one of the best additives you can put out there because you've got this collation and magnification of everything that's with it, but then it's also feeding, buffering any burn from the acid first so that you don't knock out your mycorrhizal fungi and so forth. And then it's feeding the fungi in the soil and boosting their numbers because it's the most powerful known fungal stimulant. So it's got a lot going for it. That's good to hear you did that. Yeah, so back to these questions here to make sure I don't miss anything. We're a little bit over time, but it doesn't matter. I've got to leave. I've got a doc's appointment in the quarter now, so I'll just go through and make sure I don't miss anything. So one of them was the concept of so with that lactobacillus blend that you're doing at the moment, how's it doing your trash? How's it working for you? Has you seen a response with the trash?
I only just put it out last week before a little bit of rain, so I haven't noticed anything as yet.
Okay, because it's quite active. Usually it should be quite good. So you want to eliminate MAP and use micronized guano. I mean, the good thing about the micronized guano is that, it's delivering calcium and some trace minerals into that root zone as well. If you've got liquid injector, you can put it out the planting sort of thing.
Yeah, we can. Yep.
Yeah, so that's not a possibility. That trash digester looks good. That's a nice little blend, and they're all compatible. And you've asked about the addition of trichoderma. Now, when you're brewing BAM, you don't put trichoderma and bacillus into the brew. You brew them separately, and then you can combine them. They're compatible, but they've got completely different brewing scenarios. Lactobacillus drops the pH down to 3.5, and these other organisms don't do well at 3.5, so they won't do anything much at all.
So just mix them on the way to the paddock sort of thing.
And they are compatible and they work really good together, so that will work well.
Okay.
Do you see that trash brew as a potential reduce our nutrient if we're applying that trash brew to the trash to?
Well, yeah, part of it is that you've got what's called the carbon to nitrogen ratio, that if there's a bunch of trash undigested when you're planting into it, you're sucking nitrogen to break it down because there's nitrogen required to break down trash. So if you can break it down and recycle all the nutrients that are in the trash and not have it there sucking nitrogen, that's its biggest thing. Is you're going to have to use more nitrogen if there's a lot of trash around when you're planting because you're sucking nitrogen. So yeah, that's, I mean, obviously it will be better. Everything's going to be recycled much more efficiently the faster you can break it down. If it just sits around, I mean, there's 3 minerals that volatilize, there's 3 minerals that have a gas cycle. So it's not just carbon, it's not just that you're losing CO2 to the atmosphere if you're not turning it and complexing it back into the soil. But sulfur's got a gaseous cycle, and there's some sulfur in the cane that you want going back into the soil, and that's not going to happen because if it sits there dry and doesn't break down, it just off gases as sulfur into sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. And then nitrogen, of course, has got a cycle. So there's three minerals that you really want to sort of break them down and get them complexed into the soil rather than having them off gas if they're sitting around on the surface.
Yep.
So that's nitrogen, sulfur, and carbon.